In 1923, we added something to gasoline that made cars run smoother. That single decision would lower human intelligence worldwide for the next 70 years. This is the true story of how profit poisoned an entire planet for generations. The early automobile age brought freedom, but engines had a serious knocking problem. Engine knock destroyed performance, limiting how much power cars could produce. Thomas Midgley, a brilliant young chemist, was hired by General Motors to solve this. He tested hundreds of compounds, searching for the perfect solution to engine knock. In December 1921, he discovered tetraethyllead, a cheap, effective additive. Just 1 gram per gallon eliminated knock completely, allowing powerful, efficient engines. General Motors immediately patented the discovery, creating the Ethyl Corporation to sell it. Scientists warned that lead was a known poison, but the company dismissed these concerns. Midgley publicly washed his hands in leaded gasoline to prove it was harmless. At production plants, workers immediately went insane, earning it the nickname loony gas. 17 workers died in just 2 months at the DuPont production facility. The Surgeon General investigated, but corporate lobbying prevented any meaningful regulation. By 1950, leaded gasoline fueled virtually every car on Earth, everywhere. Lead particles entered the atmosphere, then lungs, blood, and finally, human brains. Children born after 1923 showed measurable drops in intelligence and behavior. Researchers eventually connected rising crime rates directly to childhood lead exposure levels. Clair Patterson, a geologist, discovered that lead levels were thousands of times natural. The lead industry attacked his research, cut his funding, and tried to destroy his career. Patterson's testimony before Congress finally exposed the lead industry's decades of deception. Japan banned leaded gasoline in 1970, becoming the first country to act. The Environmental Protection Agency was created, beginning the long fight to ban leaded gas. The lead industry used the same tactics as tobacco, creating doubt and delaying regulation. Country by country, leaded gasoline was phased out, but the damage was already done. 20 years after the ban, crime rates began falling, exactly as researchers had predicted. Ironically, Midgley also invented CFCs, which destroyed the ozone layer until banned. Midgley died in 1944, strangled by a device of his own invention. Today, lead levels remain elevated worldwide, a permanent legacy of corporate greed. By 1970, over 250 billion gallons of leaded gasoline had been sold. Lead particles circled the globe, settling on every continent and in every ocean. Ice cores from Greenland preserve the evidence showing lead levels rising 300-fold. Lead accumulated permanently in human bones, transferring from mother to child for generations. In children, lead crossed the blood-brain barrier, permanently reducing intelligence and impulse control. Educators noticed declining test scores and rising behavioral problems, but could not explain why. Violent crime rose inexplicably, with sociologists blaming poverty while missing the true cause. In the 1990s, economist Rick Nevin discovered the shocking lead crime correlation. Every country showed the same pattern: lead bans, followed by crime drops exactly 20 years later. Independent economist Jessica Reyes confirmed the findings, establishing scientific consensus. Lead damages the prefrontal cortex, reducing impulse control and increasing aggressive behavior. Researchers estimate leaded gasoline caused 900 million lost points globally. Developing countries banned leaded gasoline decades later, extending the damage for generations. Algeria banned leaded gasoline in 2021, ending a century of global poisoning. Today, lead levels remain elevated in soil and water, a permanent legacy of industrial greed. The Flint water crisis showed how lead continues poisoning poor communities today. Leaded aviation fuel remains legal for small planes, continuing the poisoning from above. No corporation was ever prosecuted for poisoning humanity for a century of profit. General Motors, DuPont, and Standard Oil made billions while externalizing the true costs. Midgley's legacy includes 2 of history's worst environmental disasters, both from the same mind. Midgley also invented CFAs, which destroyed the ozone layer until globally banned. Stricken with polio, Midgley invented a rope and pulley system that accidentally strangled him. His death was ironic, but the true tragedy was the suffering he caused billions of people. Clair Patterson lived to see leaded gasoline banned, his life's work finally vindicated. Patterson died in 1995, still largely unknown outside scientific circles. Today's environmental scientists continue Patterson's fight for truth against corporate power. The leaded gasoline scandal teaches us that corporate profit often overrides public safety. The same tactics used to delay lead regulation are now used to delay climate action. Today, FAS and microplastics may be creating similar invisible epidemics we do not yet recognize. We must reform scientific funding to prevent corporate capture of research and regulation. Behind the statistics are millions of individual lives diminished by lead exposure. Countless crime victims suffered because we allowed profit to poison impulse control. The economic cost of leaded gasoline runs into trillions of dollars in lost productivity. Lead poisoning disproportionately affected poor communities, compounding social inequality. Much of urban decay blamed on social policy was actually caused by environmental lead. Educational reforms failed because they addressed symptoms, while ignoring the lead cause. The prison boom of the 1990s targeted criminals while ignoring lead prevention. The great crime decline of the 1990s was actually an environmental policy success. Both political ideologies were wrong. The true cause was environmental, not social or criminal. Careful scientific research eventually revealed the truth that corporate interests had hidden. Today, we test children's blood for lead, preventing damage before it becomes permanent. Lead abatement programs remove toxic paint from old homes, protecting new generations. The Flint crisis reminded America that lead poisoning remains a present danger, not history. Environmental justice advocates fight to ensure all communities receive equal protection from toxins. The EPA now has stronger authority, though corporate influence remains a constant threat. We must separate scientific research from corporate funding to ensure objective public health policy. The precautionary principle demands proof of safety before approval, not proof of harm after. We need criminal penalties for corporate executives who knowingly poison public health for profit. Climate change follows the same pattern of denial and delay that protected leaded gasoline. The fossil fuel industry copied Lead's playbook, creating doubt and delaying necessary regulation. Plastic pollution may be the next lead, an invisible epidemic we are only beginning to understand. Fast forever chemicals are already in our blood, with unknown long-term health consequences. Microplastics circulate in our bodies, just as lead once did, with uncertain effects.
Endocrine disruptors interfere with the hormone system. This causes developmental effects similar to lead. It's a hidden epidemic, a regulatory failure.
Regulatory capture remains a threat, with industries writing the rules that should control them. Democracy requires independent science to function, as leaded gasoline showed when science was corrupted. Media must investigate corporate claims rather than repeating industry public relations as fact. Education about environmental health must become standard, empowering citizens to demand protection. Environmental problems require global cooperation, as leaded gasoline's worldwide spread demonstrated. Technology without ethics creates disasters we need moral frameworks for. Scientific progress. John was the first to go mad at the DuPont plant, screaming about insects crawling on him. His family received no compensation, only silence from the company that killed him. Sarah struggled in school for years, never knowing lead had damaged her developing brain. Sarah's lead exposure increased her chance of criminal behavior, derailing her entire life. Clair Patterson was just a young geologist when he discovered the lead contamination of our planet. When his funding was cut, Patterson refused to compromise his research for corporate comfort. His congressional testimony exposed the lead industry's lies, risking his career for public truth. Patterson died knowing he had saved millions, though his name remains largely unknown. Midgley's final invention was meant to help himself, but instead it killed him. His obituary praised his brilliance, ignoring the suffering. His inventions caused billions. Today's children can grow up without lead poisoning if we maintain the protections won. Individual choices about products collectively shape corporate behavior and regulatory priorities. Voting for leaders who prioritize public health over corporate profit is essential for change. Grassroots organizing has stopped many environmental threats before they became epidemics. Supporting independent public science ensures we discover environmental threats before they cause harm. Investigative journalism exposing corporate lies remains essential for environmental protection. Teaching environmental history empowers students to recognize and resist corporate deception. International cooperation has solved environmental crises before and can do so again. We must ensure new technologies are guided by ethics, not just the profit motive. Applying the precautionary principle to new chemicals can prevent the next leaded gasoline. Holding corporate executives criminally accountable would deter future environmental poisoning. Strengthening regulatory agencies protects public health from corporate profit motives. Environmental justice ensures no community bears disproportionate burdens of industrial pollution. We owe future generations a world free from the preventable poisons we allowed. Millions worldwide are working to prevent the next environmental disaster before it happens. Recognizing our shared humanity is the first step toward just environmental governance. History shows humans can learn from mistakes and create more just societies over time. The leaded gasoline story shows that even century-long mistakes can be corrected with persistence.
The choice is yours. It's your responsibility in your time in history.
Relevant to your
What
life.
will you do?
Every product you use connects you to global systems of extraction, production, and consequence. We stand at a decision point where we can choose repetition or transformation. The world we create today is the inheritance we leave for future generations. Your individual choices about products collectively shape whether history repeats or changes. Sharing knowledge about environmental history empowers others to demand corporate accountability. Joining environmental organizations amplifies your voice beyond what any individual can achieve alone. Contacting elected officials about environmental issues ensures they prioritize public health. Supporting independent journalism ensures continued exposure of corporate environmental crimes. Advocating for public science funding prevents the next environmental disaster through early detection. Despite corporate power, citizen movements have stopped many environmental threats before they spread. Recognizing our shared humanity is the first step toward just environmental governance. Midgley's legacy reminds us that brilliance without wisdom can cause unimaginable suffering. Patterson's legacy proves that scientific integrity and persistence can overcome even the most powerful industries. Midgley and Patterson represent the choice between profit and truth that every scientist faces. We must demand corporate cultures that prioritize safety over speed and profit. The leaded gasoline ban and ozone recovery prove that environmental regulation works when enforced. The same tools that solved the lead crisis can solve climate change if we act urgently. Human ingenuity created these problems and can create the solutions if directed wisely. Technology alone cannot save us. We need ethical wisdom to guide its application. Democracy only works when informed citizens actively participate and demand accountability. Teaching this history to the next generation prevents them from repeating our mistakes. The same cars that once poisoned us can now run clean, showing transformation is possible. Today's children can grow up without lead damage if we maintain the protections won. But new chemical threats require the same vigilance that finally stopped leaded gasoline.
Viewer, your individual power starts with choice. This choice creates collective impact. Embrace your...
Sharing this knowledge helps others recognize corporate deception and demand better. Joining environmental organizations connects you to collective power greater than any individual. Political engagement ensures elected officials prioritize public health over corporate donations. Supporting independent media and science ensures truth continues, exposing corporate lies. Clair Patterson's persistence against impossible odds proves that individual action can change history. The leaded gasoline share one planet and one to demand proof of environmental protection proving requires global solidarity. We're beginning to hold corporations accountable for environmental crimes, but much remains. Environmental regulation
2024,
major crises
through justice, prevention, and reform, we build a future of hope.
Technology guided by ethics can create a better world for all Earth's inhabitants. Democracy and science together can protect public health when citizens demand accountability. Education about environmental history empowers the next generation to prevent similar disasters. Millions are working to ensure the next generation inherits a healthier planet than we did. Our shared home, Earth, deserves our protection and care for the sake of all life. What you do with this knowledge determines what story future generations will tell about us. The leaded gasoline story proves that even century-long mistakes can be corrected with persistence. This documentary was researched using primary sources and peer-reviewed scientific studies. Key sources include Toxic Truth by Lydia Denworth and Gerald Markowitz's Lead Wars. Archival materials from the EPA, CD, and National Archives provided essential documentation. Recent peer-reviewed studies confirm the lead crime connection originally discovered by Nevin. Environmental scientists and historians provided expert consultation for this documentary. Original orchestral music was composed. Specifically, for this documentary production, all visualizations were created using historical data and peer-reviewed scientific research. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who make independent documentary filmmaking possible. Subscribe for new documentaries every Thursday. Exploring history's forgotten stories. Next week, how one man accidentally killed 100 million people. Fritz Haber's story. Subscribe and click the notification bell to receive alerts for every new documentary. If this documentary informed you, please like the video to help others discover it. Share your thoughts in the comments about corporate responsibility for environmental damage. Share this documentary with anyone concerned about environmental justice and public health. Watch our playlist on industrial disasters and environmental history for more content. Support independent documentary filmmaking on Patreon for exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Forgotten Histories merchandise is available. Link in the description below. Follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes content and documentary updates. Join our Discord community too. Discuss history with fellow documentary enthusiasts. Thank you for watching and for caring about our shared environmental history and future. The story of leaded gasoline reminds us that profit can poison generations when unchecked. For 50 years, we filled our air with poison, unaware of the damage being done. One scientist's persistence finally revealed the truth that powerful industries had hidden. The fight to ban leaded gasoline took decades, but persistence eventually prevailed over profit. Country by country, the world finally rejected leaded gasoline, ending a century of poisoning. Today's children can grow up without lead damage if we maintain the protections won, but new chemical threats require the same vigilance that finally stopped leaded gasoline. Today's activists continue the fight for environmental justice that Patterson began. Your choices about what to buy and who to vote for shape the future. We share one planet and one future. Environmental protection requires global solidarity. Nature can heal if given the chance, as recovering ecosystems worldwide demonstrate. Human ingenuity created these problems and can create the solutions if directed wisely. Education about environmental history prevents future generations from repeating our mistakes. Supporting independent science ensures we discover environmental threats before they spread. Investigative journalism exposing corporate lies remains essential for environmental protection. Community organizing has stopped many environmental threats before they became epidemics. Political engagement ensures elected officials prioritize public health over corporate donations. We are beginning to hold corporations accountable, but much work remains to be done. We owe future generations a world free from preventable environmental poison. Our shared home deserves our protection and care for the sake of all life. Every sunrise brings new hope that we can correct our mistakes and build better. This is Forgotten Histories, uncovering the stories that shaped our world. History's hidden stories revealed for the first time. New documentaries every Thursday, exploring the forgotten moments that changed everything. Watch our previous documentary on the Guano Wars for more forgotten history. Subscribe and join our community of history enthusiasts. Follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes content and documentary updates. Thank you for watching and for caring about our shared history. The past is never dead. It is not even past. Remember the past that we may never repeat it until next Thursday.